Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Child Psych Podcast. My name is Tammy,
And I'm Tanya.
and we are here today to talk to you about kids who are a little shy. Tanya is going to take the lead on this podcast. I'm going to chime in because I've got two kiddos who are a little bit shy, not painfully shy, but I had a little brother who was. I just want to remind everyone that to rate and review our podcast. If you love what we're putting out into the world, go to your nearest and dearest podcast provider and just let us know how we're doing. We would really appreciate that.
I have one other plug too. We also have opened up a Patreon account, which we will link in the description, where we have tons of extra bonus content. We would love you to come and join us on Patreon too. It's way more personal, and we'd love you to come and join us there.
Yeah, so you can go to the link in the description of this podcast to get all kinds of bonus content. You can get printables, transcripts, like Tanya said, extra bonus content that's not included, any ad-free experience for our podcast.
Okay, so shyness. Tam, knowing your personality, I'm going to guess that you have probably never in your entire life been called shy.
No, I have not. And most people who listen to our podcast know that I have a biological son and two stepdaughters. And my son is about the furthest thing from shy you will ever encounter. He's pretty big personality, just, very extroverted, very talkative. And I was the same when I was little. My mom used to joke that I would go home with a complete stranger if we could carry on a conversation because I would just go up to people and just start talking. So that's definitely not an experience. But from what you've shared as friends, that was something that came up for you when you were younger, that label, I don't know if we call it label, but like it came up.
It's a label.
Yeah.
It's totally a label, yeah. So I've definitely had that label put onto me. She's shy, and we'll talk about the impact of that. And then when I think about my own girls too, I think that we often get mixed up with kind of our highly sensitive kids and introversion, social anxiety, and shyness. I think often we just throw all of those things in together when they're actually very, very different things. Out of both of my kids, Una's definitely highly sensitive. Maya's slower to warm, but not necessarily shy. And I think that that's one of the big issues that happens with shyness is that we go, oh, this child is shy, without actually looking at who are they? What are they like in terms of temperament? It just becomes this umbrella term that a child then threads their entire narrative of, I am shy, so I need extra support, or I don't talk to people. And it's incredibly limiting in terms of a label.
Yeah, it's disempowering for kids, I think.
Absolutely. And so maybe that's where we should start, is what shyness actually is. In my own vocabulary, I would really almost encourage parents to just get rid of that label altogether, all labels, get rid of those labels. And instead, if you have a child who is a little bit slower to warm, we start to look more at their entire self. So we go, this child is more observant. They are slower to warm. They take their time. And when we shift how we see our child, it also shifts how we talk to our child. So we start to say things like, you're very good at understanding when you feel comfortable and when you're not. Or sometimes you need a little bit of extra time and then you're ready to step in. Those are two very different stories. You're shy versus you understand when you're comfortable versus not comfortable.
Well, that's a beautiful way to frame it. And I think we could explain to people that there's kind of there's three, right? Three overarching temperaments. And then we have that's easy, slow to warm, and difficult temperaments. Those are the classic, I think. Easy being my son, just like jumps in, really talkative, just, sensory seeking kind of kid who's just really comfortable with people right away, or he'll make himself comfortable pretty fast. And then you're slow to warm, which you were mentioning, which is more they're social, but it just takes them a little bit to dip their toe in the water to observe and just to get their feet wet and then get a feel for everybody. And then once they're familiar, they're fine. And then your difficult temperaments, they're a little more prickly, a little more distrustful, probably a little more introverted versus extroverted. I don't know a ton of difficult kids. I know more of unless it's trauma. I know more of the slow to warm and the easy temperaments. But I know the difficult ones definitely do exist. They come into the world, I would say, kicking and screaming.
Yeah. They're just sometimes
Fiery.
Can be a little bit harder, a little bit more fiery. So those are the three there. So I think when we switch to understanding temperaments instead, it just opens up this entire world where we go, okay. And I think for children, I know for myself, one of the things that I know that I shine at is my ability to really read other people and understand how are they feeling, how am I feeling right now. And so when we can start to empower kids with going, okay, who are you? How do you shine in this particular situation? It opens up this perspective of, oh, what am I here to offer the world? Very different.
Well, that's your ability. And we've talked about this on other episodes is highly sensitive. Like we've had probably 3 or 4 episodes on highly sensitive children. So please check our archives for many of those episodes. But your HSC, you're highly sensitive, your HS, not your
Yeah.
child. You definitely have one kiddo that is, and I think I have one that is and one that is on the cusp, but it's like, it's, just parts of it. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of, it's on I think, a spectrum a little bit. And she's pretty close to being highly sensitive. And both of the girls are so attuned to what happens with other people and a lot of sensory sensitivities, really empathic that way. All 3 of my kids are. But I think I love that word empathy because kids often who are quote unquote shy can be highly sensitive. And anyone who's never heard us talk about this, it's a temperament, not a disorder. They feel everything deeply, including sensory kind of experiences. They take in a lot more information than the average child. So it makes sense that they're taking in so much, right? That it takes a minute to adjust to a new situation and new people, and they're reading everything versus myself and my son just kind of jump in, and half the time we're oblivious to what's kind of going on because we just have like a goal in mind and we'll miss things because we're just jumping in.
Just beautiful. So I love that. And I agree with you. I think often our highly sensitive kiddos and adults are slower to warm, have that slower temperament. So often I think that label of shyness does go in there as well. Not always. Not all highly sensitive people are necessarily shy, in quotation marks. But I think that that temperament, those two go hand in hand often, often, often. The other two that we often get confused is introversion and social anxiety. So I think with introversion, we need to remember that introversion is basically when we are tired or when we need to recharge ourselves. Often introverts need quite a bit of space and time. They need time alone, whereas our extroverts often recharge through being with other people. So again, that shyness that we often speak about is more slower to warm, whereas introversion is more about energy management.
And you can have a really extroverted introvert, I say, like people who are very introverted, but they're really social, but then they're exhausted when they're done, if that makes sense. Like that's the thing. So I think people assume that if you're introverted, you're shy. And if you're extroverted, you're outgoing. And I was like, oh, actually, no, it's a battery. I think of it as a battery pack. How do
Yeah,
you recharge? That would define the management of energy, like you mentioned.
beautiful. Yeah. And then social anxiety and shy also often get mixed up. So social anxiety is often just a fearfulness of new situations, new people. Whereas again, that shyness, that temperament is actually more slower to warm. So there's a difference there too.
Yeah, they know they can handle it. They just don't like being shoved into it too fast. So it's like as long to me, it's as long as they can control the tempo of the meeting. That's my oldest, my 17-year-old. As long as she knows she has that piece, like I can slowly enter the situation and decide when I want to talk to people and how I want to talk to people. And we're not saying like you have to do this and then she'll start to shut down. She needs to take the lead that way. And I don't know if that was you, Tan, when you were younger. Is it if you could just decide on the pace in which you
Yeah,
entered something new?
absolutely. And it's interesting. I went to a school which specialized in the arts, and the art that I chose was drama, which is it's extroverted, it's louder, it's big, you're in front of people.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, yeah. And now we do so much public speaking, right? Uh, but it was up to me because I was able to enter when I was ready. I was in control instead of being pushed into situations. And I think that that's often what happens with our kiddos who are slower to warm, is that parents want them to be brave, to be more confident. And so we often push them into things that they are not ready for. And so this is what I say to parents is that the environment is more important than the activity. So find something that your child absolutely loves. It doesn't matter what it is, scrapbooking, chess club, debate club, it doesn't matter what it is. Find something that they're comfortable with adults that they are comfortable with. And then we can slowly scaffold them to start to take on more and more brave moments so that they can hear their voice more, so that they can become more comfortable. But the people around them is more important than the actual activity itself.
Yeah, you're right. And I think sometimes parents, whether you have a slow to warm child, an introverted, extroverted, whatever kind of child you have, I think we have these hopes and dreams for our kids that they're going to like what we like and they're going to be like us. And sometimes we get a kiddo that does not match us. And I think, one thing I've noticed about having two stepdaughters who are much more shy than me, like they're much more slow to warm, not super outgoing. And so it takes a while, but they do get there. It was hard for me at the beginning because I'm just like, jump right in. Let's just go talk to people. Like, and that was hard for them to be around an adult. And I had to accept that these are girls, these are unique kiddos that are not going to be interested in a ton of like organized activities, sports. Like, they're not going to do like public speaking. Like, this is not going to be their thing. My son's very much like that, but I had to let go of that. There's a little bit of a grief there. And I think what's important is just awareness that sometimes kids just are radically different than us. And so our job as the adults is we have to adjust to them, not vice versa. And I think we get sometimes in the trap of pushing kids to be more like us because it makes us more comfortable.
Absolutely, 100%. We often hear that with parents too. It's like, oh, but when I was growing up, I had this big group of friends and all of the rest, and I'm so worried about my kid. But I think we often need to slow down and go, hold on, is my child happy right now? Are they content? That's what matters. If it's one little friend or they take their time, what brings them that sense of well-being? And often it's very different from what we had when we were growing up.
And it's okay that it's different and just letting that go.
I think the other big thing, Tammy, you mentioned earlier tempo, is I know with my girls sometimes when we go into situations where they're unsure, it really is about co-regulating with them. So it's about slowing down, matching where they're at. So often I'll be same as what you're saying there. It's like, oh, come on, we've met these people before, let's go. And then when I can see that hesitation, it's often a cue to go, hold on, let me just sit with them for a little bit. Let me calm my body, make sure that I am calm. Wait until they're ready, and then follow their lead on that. And there are times where we do need to push a little bit. That's that bravery muscle. But I think a big part of it has to do with an adult's co-regulation, that when a child feels safe and connected, they're more likely to take those steps towards what's scaring them in that moment.
Yeah. So using you kind of as a safe space to say, like, I've got this. And it's like, I imagine like as a bungee cord when I think of attachment, where kiddos they go out a little bit and then they come back and they go a little further and they come back. And you notice this from toddlerhood all the way to adolescence, that bungee cord gets longer and longer, but they still come in. And then the more cues they get for safety from us, that we're not frustrated with them, like we can handle what's coming up for them, they go out a little bit further and then they come in. And I think what maybe you're just like touching on there is that sometimes we can get really frustrated because we just like get over it already. And then it feels probably to the child a little bit more like coercion, like we're coercing them to go out, and they feel that, and it actually can leave them more stuck versus allowing them to go out, because now our frustration is bubbling up. They feel like something's wrong with them. They might get stuck in a feeling of shame. I can't do this. And here my adult's disappointed in me. And then the meltdown would ensue is my guess. Or they just shut down entirely. Like they're not talking, they're not moving, because no one wants to feel that the answer is coercion. Like, I have to do this. I'm being forced to do this. I think most humans don't prefer that. It's not their ideal. So then you get resistance.
Absolutely, 100% beautiful. And I think the other thing is our slow to warm kids, as we talk about being careful that there's not coercion there, is also not to let them off the hook too much. So, so often we've labeled this child as shy, and then we go to a restaurant and they're taking long to put their order in with the server. And maybe we just jump in and we go, oh, mom will order for you or dad will order for you. Is to slow down, let them take the time, and then help them to realize I can have that voice, but be careful we don't jump in too quickly and rescue them, because then we just perpetuate this, I can't do it and I'm a shy person and mom and dad need to help me always.
Actually, that was a big one for both of my girls, was ordering food. It's still a little hard for them. You can see they get a little bit like, I imagine public speaking is very similar for them, actually, if they have to talk in class. But if I just stop and back off, they do get there, but I won't actually let them off the hook. They have to, if they want food, they have to order, but they can take as much time as they need. And to the point where I've actually let people go ahead of us if they needed like a couple minutes. We usually discuss the menu first, so they already kind of know, and I can, whisper in their ear if I need to, but the idea is that they have to say the words. And we had this beautiful experience actually at a restaurant where my middle child was really struggling with ordering, but she did get it out. It was really hard, but she did get it out because I said, no, like you have to order if you want the food. And then the beautiful teller at the Tim Hortons said, I have autism and I know how hard that is. So great
Oh,
job. It was the most beautiful
oh, what a
thing.
beautiful interaction. Oh,
And
I
I tell her,
love
I was like, no,
that.
sweetie, you're not autistic too. But what she's saying is she understands what that's like to have anxiety about speaking in public to strangers, that's
Yeah.
hard. And it was really
Oh,
quite lovely. And that was
oh, that's
about a month
beautiful.
ago. Mm.
Yeah. And I think Tim's such a beautiful reminder, even with our kids, to talk to them about the fact that there's all different types of people in the world. And, we have people who talk quickly, people who talk slowly, and build that awareness around giving other people space, reading other people's cues, because within that lies emotional intelligence.
Yeah. I like the part you were talking about earlier when it can be their superpower. I don't know if those are the exact words you used, but it can be their strength. And I think that's even with our highly sensitive kids. I know I've talked to my children and framed it that way, that while like shyness kind of comes, and we have used that word, feeling a little shy, like feeling a little nervous in certain situations can feel overwhelming. The fact that you notice how other people feel and you're considering what they're thinking is your superpower too, because you're very kind to other people. You consider what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And that's a really, really good thing because it makes you an excellent friend and it makes you a really good worker and a really good student. Because I've got one kiddo who's working part time now and she can read kind of what's going on. But that's because she can step back and really take in that information. If she's given the time, she can do that. So it becomes this amazing gift. And both the girls have said that they are the friend that people come to now because they spend more time listening than talking over people. Like they slow down. And so I said, see, like this is a really good thing one on one for you. So it's just but it feels when they're younger like this really hard thing because you get into restaurants and you get into like a play date or a new like activity and they sometimes can freeze a little bit. One thing you mentioned is making sure it's a good match for them, which I have learned some things just aren't for my more quiet girls versus my son. But the second thing is just keep reframing it as their superpower. How is that a good thing in certain situations? While it feels hard in this situation, it's really good in others.
The only other thing that I would add to in that conversation is you're so good at understanding in your body when you're comfortable versus when you're not, which is a beautiful gift when it comes to boundaries. I often tell my girls there's lots of adults who don't understand boundaries and how it feels in their body, and that's something that they have already.
That somatic
Um,
piece.
which is it's such a beautiful reframe for our kids. I think, Tam, also just to finish off on it, just want to make note that I think that the emphasis on not being shy, because I feel like culturally there's often this piece of like trying to fix a child's shyness. There's a cultural perspective on confidence and competency needing to be loud, which isn't a global phenomenon. In many cultures, competency can be very quiet. But I feel like in North America, there's often a push not to be shy, not to be quiet, to step outside of yourself.
Yeah, I know my in-laws were just in Japan and we were talking to them about their experience of being in social situations in Asia. And they said that even the way we were talking at dinner time we would have been kicked out of the restaurant the way our family was interacting. And I thought so interesting, right?
It's
Like
so interesting.
you would not be that forward, you would not raise your voice like that. It would be rude. So it is very interesting that if you flip it on its end and you're in a different part of the world, those kiddos who we would call shy or introverted or slow to warm or highly sensitive would be much more valued. That would be much more socially acceptable in social situations than if you come to North America where, more extroverted, outgoing, loud, kind of outspoken people can be sometimes more valued by teachers and employers because they're more of a leader or they appear to be more of a leader, I think, initially. Although quiet people can be excellent leaders because they're so empathic, right? It just takes time for them to step into that role. So I think, yeah, that cultural piece is
It's
important to
interesting.
remember.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you, everybody. I think that's a great place for us to end. So, again, we're just shifting how we see our slower to warm kids altogether. I hope that you have some new ideas, some new nuggets to share and to think about. And again, thank you for joining us.